Hey guys, in this video we're going to finish off our Sparrow drawing, and if you need to watch the first video on how to create the outlines using guides and shapes to make this drawing, go ahead and click on the video. Link is up here on the top right, and then when you're ready to come back to this video, we'll go ahead and get going. So let's get started with this guy here. So we're going to use a lot of some short hatching strokes, and they're going to be pretty close together. So we'll be doing a lot of this. So we're just going in one direction, and we need to avoid doing zigzags. For this process, it's just a straight line. Short straight lines, and you want to be able to get them close together and use light pressure to begin with, because we're going from light to dark. Okay, so let's get going here. First thing I want to do is, you're looking at my reference, I want to darken the eye. So the eye is the darkest part of the bird, and you want to kind of keep that in your drawing, but you also want to leave an area of highlight. I'm using an H pencil. And for this guy here, I can go ahead and switch over to an HB since it is going to be dark. So going back to my H pencil, I'm going to go ahead and fill in some of the darkest areas because I want to build contrast first. So we're still working from light to dark, but these dark patches on the bird, if we get these filled in ahead of time, it'll help us to get our drawing grounded and looking a little bit more finished. And then we'll go into the lighter areas and work from light to dark there. And whenever you can, try to follow the direction of the feathers. Even these small ones here around the head, they almost look like hair, but they're just really fine feathers. Okay, I'm gonna shade in the beak, and there he has some highlight areas on the edge, so I'm going to avoid sketching there. And the bottom is a little darker, not too much of a highlight going on there except around the feathers. So just looking at a reference and pretty much making it look just like the bottom of the beak. So as you're doing this, you want to just kind of get into the habit of like glancing over to your image, back to your drawing, back to your image, back to your drawing. Okay, and I'm going to try something different here. I'm going back to my HB and I'm looking at the darkest areas that I can find, and I'm just going to quickly fill those guys in. And the reason for this is like later on we're going to put a light coat or a light layer of gray over the whole bird, and we don't want these to disappear. So we want to be able to draw them in ahead of time. This helps to build up the foundation of our drawing and pretty much all these different little elements that will all come together at the end of our drawing. So the HB allows you to use a little bit more pressure to get it darker, but you don't want to go too dark. So you can follow along and pause the video if you have to catch up if you need to. But just try to do the same thing I'm doing. It doesn't have to be in this order, but just look for these really dark shadow areas. Now along the feathers there's going to be a bunch here, so and get some dark areas here in our bird's feet. So we want to be careful around the feathers, because the edges of the feathers have a highlight, and we want to keep that there. So start at the very top edge of the feather and work your way towards the bottom of the feather, and just don't touch the bottom edge. I'm going to do these right here to show. And you don't have to have your bird look identical to the reference. It's going to vary a little bit, which is fine. And the feathers do tend to move from position, especially if there's wind or the bird is just not being still. So it's okay if some of your feathers are a little bit out of place, because they're not really out of place. That's what birds do. So as you can see, we have some highlight left on the edges of the feathers. I'm going to zoom in to show you. And this is still in shadow, so you want to gently add a little bit of shadow here, not too much. And there, we can call that part of the bird done. Okay, so there's a lot of area to cover here, so what I need to do is speed up the video a little bit, but it won't be so fast that you don't see what I'm doing. You will definitely be able to see how I'm working in this area, so I'm not going to speed it up that much. Normally I do speed it up at 400 times, so I'll try to keep it under that. Okay, here we go. So what I'm doing here is essentially just using medium-sized hatching strokes in order to get a lot of area filled in quickly, and you want to follow the direction of the feathers always. I'm paying attention to where my highlights are and avoiding any contact with pencil there. And if I see lines that disappear, especially guide lines, because it's the same value, just go ahead and redraw them. And the ones that you want are the most important ones. You don't need all the guidelines at this point because we did a lot of erasing ahead of time. but you want to define where the feathers separate. So there's some kind of a bright highlight going on up in here. I think it's one of the feathers. It's weird because it's straight, but let's go ahead and draw that in because it's there. Not pretty close. Not really perfect. Short little dagger strokes in the head area. Keep it light for the softer or lighter parts of the sparrow. And if you need to go darker, if you see it with a stronger contrast, you want to be careful when you contrast. That's why you would go from light to dark, and you only want to go darker if you really have to. So that's why you want to create a habit of reserving wanting to go darker in your drawings. It's always best to go light at first, and you can always add to it, and pretty soon you'll get to the point where your contrast looks just like the reference. So you want to pay attention to your lights and darks. Alright, gotta fill in the area around the guy's eye here. I'm going to quickly, lightly shade in this bottom part with some tight hatching strokes. And I'm going to do the same thing with the wing, but not this part because this part is real light. We'll get to that later. Notice the direction I'm going is the direction that the feathers are also going in our reference. Let's take another quick look at a reference photo close up. Okay, so that's what we're doing with their wings. And see how we didn't go too dark? I mean, we're still going light enough, but our original guides didn't fade away, they're still there. So now we have to go ahead and fill in the wings. And the wingtips tend to be darker here. Of course, it has a highlight edge. So this kind of work here that we're doing to the wing is kind of tedious, and if this bird or any bird is in flight, it'll be even more work to draw every single individual feather that's going on. But when you're done though, it's going to be an awesome looking drawing. So as you can see, I'm darkening the wing feathers a bit, just by layering my pencil strokes. And I need to go back to the wings and do that. Same thing, being careful not to get close to the edge, because that's where our highlight part of the wing is. Just like so. Now I can color this guy in here a little bit. Just going from, actually I'm going from dark to light this way. As you can see, there's like a lighter part of this feather here, but you still want to use the same direction of hatching. So since I'm up in here, I'm going to add detail to this patch of feathers. And it's got more feathers going on in here, so we gotta fill those in. Okay, at this point I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video and finish this sparrow. Just pause the video if you have to. Okay, so we're going to wrap up our drawing here and doing some last minute shading. I'm just looking at where the shadows are and giving them a little bit darker tone, so it has the same values as the reference photo. And if you need to, you can use a darker pencil like a 2B or a 4B. An HB should be okay, but having darker pencils will help you fill in those areas that needs to be darker, since you went over them with a 2H or an H. And sometimes that kind of creates a little bit of a shine, and it makes the surface a little bit more slippery because there's a lot of hardness on there. So a 4B is soft enough to add new graphite on top of that and get that darker. And don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials. I do plan on creating a few more of these. And if you have any suggestions, just let me know in the comments. And I'd be happy to come up with new videos for you guys. Thanks again.